Great. Well, welcome to the University of Portsmouth and the BSc Honours Paramedic Science presentation. My name is Andy Jones. I'm the course leader for Paramedic Science and your host for today. But what I would also like to do is ask the other members of staff and our students to introduce themselves before I give you an outline of our virtual open day presentation. Patrick, would you like to start?
Yes, of course. Hello, my name is Patrick Gudzinski. I'm a senior lecturer in the paramedic team, and I look forward to delivering part of these presentations to you.
Hello, I'm Tracy Brickell. I'm also a senior teaching fellow on the paramedic course team and look forward to meeting you too.
Hello, I'm Naomi Dickey. I'm a senior teaching fellow on the paramedic science course, and I'll be talking to you about admissions a bit later on in this presentation.
Jess?
Hello, my name is Jess and I'm a third year student paramedic.
Aisha?
Hello, I'm Aisha. I'm first year student paramedic.
Ellie?
Hello everyone, my name's Ellie and I'm a second year student paramedic.
Thank you. David?
Hi, I'm David. I'm a first year paramedic student at Portsmouth.
Thanks. And James?
Hello, my name's James. I'm also a second year student paramedic.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And I'd like to say a big thank you to our students, many of which are sort of fairly busy as we speak at the moment, for volunteering and helping us out with this presentation. So I think the idea behind this presentation is to give you a feel for paramedic science at Portsmouth, to be able to answer some of your frequently asked questions, but to also outline some of the key learning, teaching, assessment approaches, but also to give you opportunity to hear from our students about their experience of studying at Portsmouth. So we aim to give you an introduction to the course, the kind of approaches that our students will experience whilst with us, what it's like out on clinical placement, and we'll hear specifically from the students about that, and to give you a little bit of guidance and help with your application and the kind of things we're looking for. At the end of this presentation, we've got some frequently asked questions that we're going to cover, and this is a virtual open day presentation. These are the kinds of questions that we would normally get asked if we had visitors with us on our tour. I know there are lots of other resources that you're able to access that give you a feel for Portsmouth, and obviously if you've got any further questions, you can there are some websites and telephone numbers at the end of the presentation that you can use if you want some more information, you're interested in studying with us. So we know, in coming from a scientific career background, paramedics do require that, in particular the professional elements, but also the scientific knowledge and training in order to be ready for the workforce. And that's part of what we will need to do. The university is renowned for the amount and type of investment that it undertakes to support student learning. And what you'll see across the campus for different disciplines, and Portsmouth is one of the key universities in the south to support the health and social care sector with the various different types of courses that lead towards professional registration. So we deliver courses in pharmacy, in biomedical science, in social work, in radiography, operating department practice, and others. So students will be able to experience the professional training given by members of their professions in a simulated professional environment. So great, there's lots and lots going on in terms of the university infrastructure and working with business and health and social care partnerships. So our students will of course be placed in the NHS organisations, but the University of Portsmouth has some really well established relationships with other sectors and industries, and many of which provide placements for our students. In terms of overall satisfaction, we would expect, if you were looking to study paramedic science anywhere, we would expect you to do your research and to look for the course that's right for you. We've spent a lot of time and many years on improving our programme, and the last student satisfaction report that we had in 2019 gave us this. We were very proud to be able to say that 97% of our students were very satisfied with our course. So we're a sector leader in the undergraduate paramedic science setting. Many of the graduates from Portsmouth itself go on to either complete further study or get employment, and a little bit more about the employment prospects later on for our paramedics, as we can talk about that in the frequently asked questions. So we'd just like you to welcome you to our programme, to Portsmouth. I will hand over now to one of my colleagues who will talk about the learning and teaching approaches. Part of what we have to do when we deliver our curriculum is ensure that we meet the standards of the profession. So our course is approved by the Health and Care Professions Council. That's an important element of any programme that leads to registration. And one of the things we do have, which we will renew next year, is that we do have an endorsement from the College of Paramedics who write the curriculum for undergraduate paramedic science programmes. So what we teach is based on what our profession thinks that our students need to know as part of their undergraduate professional training. So that's important. We're guided by a curriculum that's written by paramedics for paramedics. So I'd like to hand over to Patrick now, and who will take you through the learning and teaching and assessment processes that we have available for students at Portsmouth.
Thank you, Andy. Welcome back. It's Patrick again, and indeed I'll be happy to cover the next few slides. So one of the questions you might be thinking, how will I learn at the University of Portsmouth studying paramedic science? So we have a range of learning environments we will expose you to and you'll be engaging with. One of the proudest ones we offer is the simulation. I'll cover that in a little bit more detail in the next slide. But there's an element of simulation, indeed, as you could expect. It'll prepare you for some clinical skills and a range of other skills before you go out in placement, and indeed while you're in placement to consolidate your learning. Interprofessional education is something that will be widely available to you. As you may be aware, the scope of practice of a paramedic in the UK is very broad, and it's very difficult to have a true specialism in the variety of fields we have to engage in. So we are no strangers to inviting specialist speakers, for example, a consultant anaesthetist or people from social work background talking about child protection. They're real experts in the field. They'll be able to offer you and the true excellence and the latest in the field of their practice that's available, that will be linked to your paramedic practice. Group work, as you can imagine, you're going into a group working profession when you work as teams quite frequently. So that will be certainly a big element of your learning journey with us. Reflective journals, reflective writing, it will become part of your assessment throughout 3 years. Big element of becoming a clinician and maintaining your registration and being a self-clinician is reflection and reflecting on your practice and events during your encounters. So that'll be a big part of your journey as well. Of course, I can imagine you expect lectures to be there. Of course, we're a university. There'll be a number of lectures, seminars, small group, large group learning, your traditional didactic approaches to a degree with interactive blended learning, the whole variety you will be exposed to there. Directed study in the form of sometimes self-directed. On occasions, you indeed be requested to go away and do a particular task, and more of an adult learning principle when you take charge and accountability for your learning and you go and explore topics and depths of different areas. And indeed, you'll have tutorials. That's one-to-one tutorials if required. Of course, you have group tutorials preparing you for the assessment. And sometimes they timetabled, sometimes they can be arranged on demand. And it's very much to support you there. Continuing about the simulation, I promised a minute ago, we'll discuss it in a little bit more depth. We do have a simulation center we're very proud of. It is truly state-of-the-art facilities, and we're one of the leaders in the UK for the quality, the size, and the capacity of the simulation centre we have. It is a big contributing factor to us achieving a gold teaching award, and we're very proud of it. And it is certainly one of our unique selling points. We're probably the best ones in the South, and certainly one of the leaders across the UK. Is invested millions of pounds of cash into the centre. We have 2 centres. The one you'll be spending most time in will be Rosalind Franklin West Simulation Centre, where you'll be exposed to high fidelity simulation and training. In there, of course, you'll meet us, the course team, your peers, and your specialist teaching and guest lecturers could also be invited to participate in sessions there. Now a little bit about the assessment. So how will you be assessed again? The universities are known to offer a wide range of assessment, perhaps which is broader than your standard essay and exams. These will be there, so let's go through the list. But there also be some others. So objective structured clinical examinations, something known as OSCE, your practical stuff like resuscitation, clinical practice, intubation, anything that involves any form of clinical intervention is likely to be assessed in a form of an OSCE. You've got presentations. It could be group presentations, could be individual presentations, depending on what unit you study, what artifact is being measured. You may be asked to produce a presentation. In-class exam, this is your traditional online or written test that happens in the classroom, unseen questions, a variety of multiple choices, open-ended questions, all the standard practices that are employed in education. And academic writing is a big part for many people when they come to university, and of course different format of academic writing. We have your standard essays, your case reports, reflective writing. There's all different types of academic writing, starting in year 1, progressing into year 2, doing literature reviews, all the way to taking it into your final year when you'll be doing your final project, your dissertation, all part of academic writing. So it's a big journey and a big adjustment to many people, but that is very exciting, and it really encourages this adult learning. There's plenty of support available for you. Talk about it in a moment. You're never on your own with all these things. If any of these concepts look strange or new to you, there's no need to be anxious about it. And then we have a combination of summative and formative assessments. Summative means this is your final assessment, the official one, if you like, that scores you marks and gradings that go towards your final score. And formative assessment is still a type of assessment you have to engage in. You need to attend, and you get feedback or maybe an indicated mark. But formative means it's not critical to overall outcome of the unit, and nevertheless it's a different type of assessment. And then you've got your practice assessments and clinical placements. Of course, you spend many hours in a clinical placement, and there you have a practice assessment document where you'll be required to achieve a number of learning outcomes per placement per year and so on. And that certainly will be also one of the formats of assessment you'll be exposed to with us. And now I've introduced you to all those concepts of assessment and learning. There is a student wellbeing and academic support that's extensively available. And we mean that we are known, and we're very proud of the level of services and support we offer to our students. So from the very beginning, you'll be allocated a personal tutor. It could be one of us, one of the academic team, who is your point of contact that gets to know you a little bit more than some of the other students, because if you ever have a personal hardship or you need any support with any aspect of your academic, personal health journey, your home life, university life, this is your point of contact that will be able to help you through and signpost you to different services. And we all have a number of personal tutors per member of staff, and they're always available there for you. Then when you're in placement, you'll get your clinical mentor. You'll be allocated to a team. Each team has a clinical mentor, and the same clinical mentor that looks after your team will be your named person to look after you, your development, complete the necessary paperwork and documentations associated with your performance, and so on. Then you've got ambulance service occupational health, and you have support services ranging from employee helpline for any difficulties you may experience, and something called the TRIM service, which is an assessment of trauma. and the management of it. In other words, you'll be treated no different to a member of staff, and the services of support, personal and mental support will be available to you, just as if you were employed by the local ambulance service. Then we have the University Mental Health and Physical Wellbeing Service. This is separate to the ambulance service. You're eligible for both. We have a university surgery where you can register, you have your own doctor and so on. And again, it's not unusual for students from across many courses to engage in these services should they encounter any hardships or they're simply looking for advice. Religious support, yes, we've got that too. As mentioned, the package is really extensive. If you're looking for new religion, or you have questions about your current one, or you'd like to explore the philosophical concepts of religions in general, and you feel you need help, or you wish to explore these these matters and find out more, there is a service for that. Then moving on to the academic principles, you've got academic skills support. If you're new to any of the concepts of the assessment or academic writing, or you're struggling with referencing or structuring a specific piece of work we're asking you to do, this is the service for you. We've got designated science faculty and health academic team of a number of members of staff that just work full-time there just for you. Book an appointment and use the services as required. If you have additional learning needs or disabilities, that's also widely recognised, and we have a good package, a department called ASDAC, that will be able to support you. Or the extra time assessments, additional needs, it could be you have to be assessed and could be arranged and put in place if you require them. You've got University Library, of course, as being the source of valuable resources. You've got a librarian team that are very keen to help you with concepts like database searching and all the IT side of things associated with retrieving evidence online as well as in the library. And lastly, you've got student finance, the designated student finance team from the university that'll be able to help you with any aspect of your finance, any hardship allowances, advice, budgeting, and so on. So as you can see, the list is quite extensive. These are the key support services I thought would be useful to share with you in this presentation. There are some others, but these are the key ones that we're very proud of and are very well used by many of our students most of the time.
So hello, I'm Tracy, and I'm the placements lead for the Paramedic Science course. And like the rest of the team, I work in partnership with the Ambulance Service Higher Education team and clinical mentors to provide you with a meaningful and positive placement experience. Over 50% of your time is spent in placement, which equates to over 2,000 hours in this environment during the duration of your course. And the majority of these placements are undertaken with the local ambulance trust, South Central Ambulance Service, within their Hampshire division. However, you will also undertake non-ambulance placements in other clinical areas. For example, in year one, you will have a 1-week community placement, and this might be in a drug and alcohol rehabilitation centre or at a centre for people with learning disabilities. In year two, students also undertake hospital placement in various areas such as the emergency departments, paediatrics and maternity. And students are also placed in coronary care units and theatres. Last year, some of our third-year students spent a week on placement with a GP, and all third-year students undertook a placement at the Ambulance Clinical Control Centre and a local minor injuries unit. There are 2 placements in each academic year. Placements are always timetabled in blocks ranging from 4 to 8 weeks, with longer placement blocks in years 2 and 3. And whilst on placement, you'll always be supervised by a registered practitioner, and you'll also be allocated a personal mentor to support you and oversee your progress. And students are placed in teams that have individual team leaders, a clinical mentor, and other team members such as paramedics, specialist paramedics, technicians, associate ambulance practitioners, and emergency care assistants. The next slide, please. So this is the placement layout that I was referring to, and you can see that the placements are in study blocks and placement blocks. And although this may be liable to change, this is a fairly good overview of what your 3-year course structure would look like. The next slide, thank you. You'll be placed in a team in one of 3 areas within Hampshire, such as the North area, South West or South East area. And students are rotated around these 3 areas, so you'll be placed in a new team in each academic year. The rotation enables you to experience a wide range of both patients and demographic locations, and in turn ensures an equitable experience for all students. And we also have a placement on the Isle of Wight with the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service. You'll be provided with a uniform and all the necessary personal protective equipment, such as boots, a fluorescent jacket and a helmet. And as there is a physical element to the role, you'll also undertake training to ensure that you are able to safely undertake manual handling. The university provides core skills training, which is a prerequisite prior to going into placements. And in addition, the ambulance service provides all new students with an induction programme. Part of this induction includes a manual handling assessment, including working in a pair in order to lift or transport a mannequin down the stairs in a carry chair. It isn't a formal assessment, and on completion, you'll be offered advice and feedback on your technique. Additionally, all students are required to undergo occupational health clearance, including immunisation and monitoring, and you'll also need to complete the disclosure and barring services checks, as you will potentially have significant contact with children or vulnerable adults. And once this is completed, you'll be issued with a passport to practice and allocated shifts with your team. And these will follow the same pattern as your team, and you'll be given 5 weeks' notice of your shifts. You'll be allocated 3 shifts per week, and these can be on any day of the week, including weekends. And they can start as early as 6 in the morning or start later in the afternoon and finish in the early hours of the morning. And you'll also be rotated for nights, the same as the rest of your team. As I mentioned earlier, these shifts can be anywhere in Hampshire within your allocated area, and it's your responsibility to get yourself to and from placement. Some of the placement locations, such as Basingstoke, are approximately 50 miles away from Portsmouth, which can take around about an hour to get to. And if you need to be there for 6 in the morning, it's unlikely that you'll be able to rely on public transport. Clinical placement is an integral part of this course, and I hope it's an element you'll really enjoy, being in a supportive environment whilst learning and preparing for your future professional role. I'd like to introduce you to some of our current students to hear about their experiences of placement and mentorship.
Thank you very much, Tracy. This is it's an open forum, really. What we'd like to do is just hand over the presentation to the students and just talk to us a little bit about, the bit that Tracy just mentioned about clinical placements, how it works, how you work within the team, what placement learning is, how that's delivered, what perhaps a typical day or set of shifts will be like for you, and the kind of things that you're, I suppose, expected to do, the kind of things you'll be seeing, anything at all that will give, I suppose, people who are interested in paramedic science an insight into what it's like to be a student on placement. Is that okay? Can I ask you all just to contribute to this point? That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So I'll start. So hi, just introduce myself again. So I'm Ellie, and I'm a 2nd year student. I just would like to clarify on what Tracy has just said. Even though in the course information it says that driving is not essential, I would definitely suggest that if you don't have your driving licence, it should become an essential necessity for this course. I'm 2nd year and I'm based in Basingstoke this year. I live in the Portsmouth area, and it can be sometimes a big trek to get to Basingstoke, especially for a 6 o'clock in the morning start. You're up at 4 o'clock in the morning making sure you've got everything ready for the shift. So I just wanted to put across to you how important having a driving licence is. Also, things like placement's fantastic. It's a fantastic way for our students to learn. You learn obviously at university, but being out on placement is a different type of learning, and you really do get a feel for the job when you're out on placement. So yeah, I'll hand over to another student to get their point across to you guys as well.
So hi, I'm Jess. I'm a third year paramedic student, to let you know again. So as I'm coming to the end of my course, I found that the course has really helped me to build up my confidence, and I've really enjoyed the way placement has enabled me to have a hands-on approach with my course. I'm able to understand techniques and how systems work within the body and how medications work with an individual. I find that moving around different locations has helped me to understand different criteria that hospital needs to meet, and just the way that different paramedics learn, which will help you to become your own sort of paramedic and use your own techniques, in which when you become a paramedic, you'll be able to pass on to future students that you will have.
Hello, James, I think it's my call, isn't it? So I think I found that it's a good scheme. You're either a clinician, you're a paramedic on the ambulance. It's there in their interest for you to do well. They're there to support you. You're never by yourself. But they do actively encourage you to get involved. You start your first year getting the basics, and the basics are a really important part. And I think I definitely kind of think, oh, I can do that. Actually, no, it's about doing the basics well, which then allows you now in my second year to go on and build on those, and hopefully in my third year I've built further, so ready for registration.
Hi, I'm David, first year student. It was nervous to begin with to go on to placement, but everyone on the team settles you in. You all work. You are part of that team. You get each station you get allocated. So I've been allocated to Basingstoke, for instance. The North has 10 teams. 13 teams. Sorry, they get spread across 4 main locations. So you could work it out of any one of the stations within the North of Hampshire. So that could be Andover, Alton, Eastleigh, Basingstoke, Alton, and so that. But that's why driving is essential as well, because you could be one day you could be in Basingstoke and the next day you could be in Andover. You're working within your team, but you're also working with different paramedics, which is a good way of learning. And you get to see how they do every job, and then you can develop your own skills from them. So every day is completely different, and it is enjoyable. And they're getting the results and helping people and seeing from a serious cardiac arrest and getting them to hospital. And it is really rewarding so far.
I'm Aisha, first year student paramedic again. I want to talk about the clinical mentors. Placement's great, but your clinical mentors are really there to help you if you need it. I think it's really important to build up a good professional relationship with them, because if you do get stuck, even with your coursework at university, they're actually more than willing to help you out with that as well. I've found a few times that if I've got questions about a specific subject, he's always willing to help me sort of come to an answer. If you ever have any problems on shift as well, and you're not on shift with them, you have a team leader as well that is always willing to sit there and listen and help you sort of either understand what's going on that shift, or if you've had a job that's not been great, they're always there to support you as well, and they'll always try and make you feel comfortable. So yeah, clinical mentors are great.
I also just wanted to quickly add, while it's our students, so as well, everybody learns differently. Me learning will be somewhat different to other people, so it's really good to kind of get background knowledge and an understanding of how you learn best. For me, I grab a notepad, take a notepad into every single patient with me. I can write things down. Flashcards are a fantastic way to start getting things into your head, to start processing the information, because honestly, guys, there is a lot to learn in the 3 years. But if you make sure, if it's what you want to do, and you make sure that you're keeping on track of all the work and you're keeping on track of everything, then the world is your oyster, basically. Secondly, really utilise the services that we get offered. So not just your university side of things, but also SCAS side of things, or the ambulance side of things. So we've got things such as TRIM. So TRIM is kind of like a mental, so if you've had a really bad job, you can get counselling from them, which is fantastic to utilise, especially for people who have never experienced anything like this, going into jobs where you're seeing really quite profuse things. It can be quite hard for you to process, so using the services available to you. And just the last thing, we obviously go to a wide range of patients. You go to people, you can go to a pregnancy and you can deliver a baby. You go to people's worst day of their lives, you can go to their best days of their lives. So it's just kind of preparing yourself for the wide range of jobs that you're going to go to, and just really enjoying it, because it's a fantastic course, and it's really the patients that do make this course as enjoyable as it is.
I just want to quickly mention, before we move on, the non-ambulance placements, and just to say that they have really helped the learning from a clinical perspective and from a academic perspective. With the hospital placements, you're able to go into maternity units, so you're able to learn about any maternity emergencies and how you handle them and deal with them. You're able to go into theatres and learn the good techniques from how to intubate and use good airway techniques. And like Tracy mentioned, the third years had the opportunity to go into GP practices, which I was a part of, and I found a really great experience to see how the paramedic service is moving on and where it can progress to.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's really good. I want to be a student again after hearing all of that. So thank you very much. That's unscripted, and it's lovely to hear, firstly, the hints and tips for people that are interested in doing this, but also I think the positive things that we know, that our students are able to access, good support and good teaching. I wanted to ask you all a question, if that's okay, students, and it's about assessment. We do lots of assessments, obviously, on campus as part of your program. How are you assessed on placement? So there's lots of learning. You've outlined the learning part. How are you assessed by the registrants you work with and your clinical mentors? How does that work?
I think for me, so we get a practice assessment document that has a massive long list of learning outcomes that we have to complete over the year. The way sort of me and my clinical mentor work it is, I will go into a shift with an aim to get out of that shift. So I'll go in and say, look, today, if we get XYZ patient, then I want to do this. Are you happy? He's always happy to turn around and go, okay, well, we'll do it. If you need some help, then we'll help you, but we'll try and work through that list as the shift goes on, and then go into another shift with another set of outcomes that I want to complete. And they're always happy to sort of accommodate that where they can.
Yeah, so as Aisha goes on about accommodating, obviously I'm a second year student now. However, in my first year, obviously I had a PAD outcomes to sign off. And if you, for example, you might not go to that certain type of job, so there's outcomes on there which you have to meet, but you may not be exposed to that sort of job. So it could be anything from a cardiac arrest to airway management to COPD to anything. So what the university are really good at, and also SCAS as well, they're able to accommodate you passing those outcomes with not actually having to show it in practice. So, for example, for me, I had some outcomes left to sign off, and my clinical mentor in first year, he made me go back, he made me go revise, he made me know the ins and outs of that outcome, and he was able to quiz me on it, and due to that he was able to sign me off. So if you don't get them done, don't panic too much, because there'll be a plan of action in which you can finally get them starting to get signed off.
I guess the main idea is to really get involved with your practice and placement, and just to keep looking over as to what either you want to achieve or what bits you need to sign off. I know that quite a few paramedics, because I'm third year and coming up to being qualified, I'm quite often just left to my own devices. And I'll make a decision and I'll get quizzed as to why I want to make that decision, why I want to get that drug, why I want to take them into hospital. And it's a really good process because it helps your own learning and helps you to understand a different way that you may be able to go about it, or ideas that you haven't thought of yet. So, yeah.
I think so. As a second year, I think it's important to note that you do it in steps. You get a numerical score on how well you've achieved it, and it's not always you haven't got to be perfect first time. Even in my second year, some things require a 3, which is fairly independent. But if the first couple of times I've done it, if it's a new skill, I might get a 1 or a 2, and then in future, well, with another clinician, they can see that I've progressed and they're able to kind of increase the score. So it's not 0 to hero. It's stepping stones, making good progress, and having those conversations with your supervisor and clinician, or team leader or clinical mentor, or whoever you're having those discussions with, and looking at that progress.
Yeah. Also, within the pad, you have a series of interviews that you have to have, formal interviews that you have to have with your clinical mentor. So if sometimes you don't see your mentor for a couple of weeks with it because they might be on leave as well, but you have to do 2 shifts with them each month. But the interviews, you can sit down with them if you've got any concerns or any learning outcomes that you need to achieve. With my mentor, we'd sit through and see what we have to do, and what an action plan can be, how we can get them finished off, or like the others have said, if we haven't done them, or if we at the end, we can talk through them and make sure everyone's happy. So it's just a stepwise approach of making sure we know what we're doing, and then the mentors are really good at getting the best out of you.
Lovely. Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll come back to you actually at the frequently asked questions at the end. So thanks very much. I'm going to hand over to Naomi now, who's just going to talk a little bit about the admissions process and kind of what to expect if you're applying to Portsmouth.
Thank you, Andy. So this slide outlines the course requirements, entry requirements to the course, and gives some examples of some of the qualifications which would meet those entry requirements. So you can see in our first level here, so we're looking for 112 UCAS points. And when we're looking at A-levels, that equates to BBC at A-level. Importantly, that 32 points or a C needs to come from a single A-level science subject. The reason behind this is because, as Andy's already said, Paramedic Science is a science-based course, and it's really important you have that scientific understanding to come into the course when you start. In the middle, an example of an access course. So again, we'll be looking for the same 112 tariff points from UCAS. Importantly here is again that 21 of those credits must be in a science subject and passed at merit or above. You may have different qualifications you're undertaking. People often undertake a mix. If you have a look on the course website, it'll have details about how that 112 points can be made up. And if you have any qualifications you're unsure of, there's an email address of the Science Admissions Department. He'll be able to help you see whether your courses you're undertaking do meet the entry requirements. For anybody whose English isn't their first language, there is an expectation that you'll meet IELTS. So that is a score of 7 with no component score below 6.5. So in our next steps, so what to do now? We've had lots of information about the course. You've heard from our students about what it's like to be at Portsmouth and to be a paramedic. So the first thing we'd advise is to have a look at the website and other promotional material, really understand what it is about the course that you'd like, about the profession. Make sure that you meet the entry criteria prior to applying for the course. And as with other degrees, the application is via UCAS. One really important point to note about the course is our recruitment is very much values-based. The values we use, there's information about this on our website, very much relate to NHS values and also relate to the values of our professional and regulatory bodies. So one way to show that you meet the values would be to investigate and to take part in volunteering activities or work experience, working in any job across the health and social care sector to get that experience of working with service users. Okay, so some application top tips. So some ideas of how to make your application stand out. So first of all would be to contact your local ambulance service, arrange to talk to paramedics, if possible, arrange an observer shift so you can actually see what the job is actually like. If it's not possible for you to visit your ambulance service, really undertake some research into what the role of a paramedic is. So to kind of go on to the last point on the slide about giving reasons for your choice of profession, is really important that you understand the job that you're applying for. Paramedic Science course leads very clearly, obviously, to a paramedic job afterwards. And it's really important you understand the full range of the job which you are applying for and those experiences which you'll see on placement. As Ellie said, you'll see a whole range of different opportunities, different jobs you'll be called to, and actually having an understanding of what that will look like before you start is really beneficial. If you have had the opportunity to get some clinical experience, be that volunteer work or employed work, mention this in your application form to show what you've learnt from undertaking this experience. So a bit about the process now. So after you apply through UCAS, the applications are all screened by our admissions team. So the admissions team will have a look at your qualifications and your particular grades to make sure these meet our entry requirements. At that point, the application forms come to myself as admissions tutor. Again, I'll have a look at the qualifications, your particular grades, and importantly then look at your personal statement and the statement from your references, again, to make sure that these meet our entry requirements. As I'm reviewing the applications, I'm looking for two different things. So firstly, looking for your knowledge about what it's like to be a paramedic, about the role, and then also looking at your values as well. So do you meet our values that we expect our students to have? So all students who are then shortlisted will be invited to interview. So interview days run numerous times over the year. This structure here very much describes our face-to-face interview days. Obviously, there may be changes in the coming academic year depending on the government guidelines. But as part of our interview days, we have invite our current students to come and they're there to talk to you. They will give guided tours around the university and the clinical facilities we have. And obviously they're a great resource to ask questions about what it's actually like to study on the course. You get an overview of what the programme will be like. As part of the day, you also have face-to-face interviews. So these interviews are conducted with at least 2 people on the panel, normally a member of academic staff and a member of clinical staff. And again, that importance of value-based recruitment comes out here in the interviews as well. You've got the NHS constitutional values. As we're looking at the interviews and looking at your responses, again, it says knowledge and the values that we're looking for within your answers. Just an important point to note, so any offer of a place in the course will be dependent on getting clearance from the disclosure and barring services and from occupational health. So you'll undergo those checks at the start of the course, and you have to get a cleared disclosure and barring services check and have occupational health signed off before you're allowed to go into clinical placements.
Okay, Naomi, thank you very much for that. So that's most of the core topics that we would, if you were visiting Portsmouth, that we would cover. Just a note really, we're aiming to get all of our students to the end point of the course for graduation and beyond. Once you're awarded the BSc Honours, you are eligible then to apply to the HCPC for registration as a paramedic. Employability opportunities are very, very good, particularly in the south of the region. There is a streamlined process for recruitment for students that are placed with South Central Ambulance Service, primarily because you've had your 3 years worth of placements with the organisation. They know you well, you know them well, and the majority of students do actually stay in the South Central region. And our third years, we know that many of them are staying on the patch. Many of them already have those job offers waiting for them when their course completes. So employability rates are very, very high. Some go into the private sector and some choose to go into other roles and either use their registration in alternative ways. So I think one of the students mentioned it earlier on is that you can use your registration however you like. You're not mandated to work for the NHS. You're not mandated to stay and work for the ambulance service you've been placed with for 3 years, but many choose to do that. Beyond registration and starting work, we see many of our mentors, many of our ex-students who are in this area support our current students, and many of them have gone on to do further study or specialist practice. So they've joined things like the heart team, HEMS, or they're critical care paramedics, or they work in community or hospital services. And we're seeing then lots and lots of new roles popping up for graduate paramedics. So it certainly makes the choice nowadays for graduates much more extensive, much more interesting. Portsmouth offers a number of post-registration modules and degrees, master's modules in research, and we see that 1 or 2 students quite often are interested in coming back and supporting us with our teaching, and we always welcome our graduates to come back and help us help teach our students and support them. But some of our graduates will also go off and do things that help support our profession as well. So they may choose roles that are offered by the College of Paramedics as perhaps CPD leads and local leads for their individual services, or you could even work for the regulatory body, the HCPC. So the world is your oyster. We think that prospects are very, very good in the south. We know that nationally there is still going to be, for a number of years, a shortage of paramedics. So things are looking good, and it's quite often a case of the offers will come in usually towards the end of the final year of study, and services will start to recruit our students fairly early on in their last year. So January, February time, we'll start to see services then hunting for those students that they know are going to be graduating within a few months. So we've got a number of, the university has a number of different social media outlets, and that just gives you an idea of if you wanted to keep in touch with us. And I'll leave this up just for a few minutes. If you have any questions particularly on admissions, that's the telephone number for our admissions department. For health admissions, just send them an email. And if they need to know anything from us as a course team about particular qualifications or modules that you may have studied, they'll obviously talk to us and work with us quite closely. And there are some other useful websites. We'll certainly encourage you again to look at the website before thinking about applying, and to learn quite a lot about our course and to make sure it's right for you. So that's the end of the presentation. What it leads to now is just really an open forum. We've got some frequently asked questions that we've been populating and that we can run through. Is everyone happy if I run through those FAQs and perhaps ask people to contribute to those? Would that be okay? Perhaps for the next maybe 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, no, fine with me.
We'll make sure that then this is available to any of the visitors on the paramedic booth when they visit us. So I'm just going to stop there for a second and stop sharing my screen, and I'll bring up our FAQs. Okay, all right. Okay. So just give me a thumbs up that you can see the FAQs document, everyone. Great. So these are what we've done. We've all contributed to this document. There are some answers on here, but I think it's probably easier rather than us read them out if we can just answer them verbally. You have to excuse me, my voice is going. They cover topics about the course, about placements, about finance, about student experience and admissions. So what I'll do is I'll run through these very quickly, and perhaps if I can ask one or two of you to kind of contribute. I think we've covered this one. What is the structure of the course like? How are study days and placement days organised? Tracy's given us an idea of what that looks like in terms of study blocks and placement blocks, and then returning to the university. And we have a fairly standard approach to university holidays. There have been subtle changes as a result of the coronavirus to our academic year this year. We're starting slightly later, so we're starting in October rather than September. And we have a slightly shorter Easter break, but students will enjoy a Christmas break, an Easter break, and a normal summer break between academic years. And you've heard about the, and also how placement works. What sort of assessments have to be taken? I think Patrick has covered that one in fairly good detail with regard to the range of assessments that you'll undertake and also how assessments in placements will work. Are there any changes to the course because of coronavirus? Shall I get, this is kind of hopefully a temporary kind of question, but I'm going to ask perhaps for a couple of responses from students. What have you been doing since the national lockdown and since we've had to, unfortunately, because of safety reasons and big concerns about patient safety, what has happened to you since the coronavirus outbreak, and what have you been up to? This will be, I suppose, a temporary arrangement, really, just to get us through until things are looking a little bit more normal.
I think from a year one perspective, it's been difficult. We had a lot of assessments that were due to be taken that completely threw us out, basically. And there's been a lot of sort of self-directed study that's been needed to be done. And I know that a lot of the year one students have taken on temporary contracts with SCAS, doing patient transport work. So we're trying to sort of juggle working around self-directed learning and our assessments and our exams. So I think from year one, there's been a big change. Just trying to fit everything in from home. And I know for a lot of people, learning from home is difficult anyway, because there's so many distractions. Whereas if you're in university, you don't really have much choice. So yeah, I know it's impacted a lot of us year ones massively.
Yeah, so, and from second year point of view, I mean, it's up on the screen at the minute, but we have been really lucky this year. So as it says, the second year students have been really lucky because we have actually already had all of our teaching done by the time that COVID meant that the university had to close. So we had all our lectures presented to us. We had all our assignments already and going. We had done all our exams and we had done all our OSCEs. So for our second year students, we've actually been quite lucky, like I say, because we didn't need to self-direct study anything because we had already done it at university. The teaching had enabled us to talk to all our to the relevant lecturers, so we were able to ask all the relevant questions and also gain a good understanding of what the assignment was before we had to even start them. for the other years, obviously they haven't been so lucky, and I can only imagine that self-directed learning is really hard. But the university have put loads of things in place. So we've obviously got the university library that we can access 24/7. All the library has all these online resources, books, articles, loads of different academic writings on there, so you're able to look at that 24/7, and it's just making sure that you keep reading over these times, because you've just got to keep that knowledge and that underpinning knowledge up to a T to ensure that you're not going to fall behind, because obviously we haven't been in placement for months. So it's just making sure that you're carry on revising and you're carry on learning and you're carrying on learning, while you're in lockdown. So yeah.
I found for third year students that it's been difficult, because where we're coming up to the end, we of course want to get as much time out on placement, and it's been cut short. But luckily, where for myself I haven't had that much, and I've been able to apply for the temporary register, so I would be able to go out on the roads as a temporary paramedic if required by SCAS. I found that it's been really helpful for lectures to still go on, even though they've been through Google meetings or any sort of virtual video. And then exams, we've had a couple of exams and essays to do, but luckily they haven't interrupted us so much that we haven't struggled a lot.
Okay, thank you very much for that. This question is, I think, probably a useful one for us to answer and also for students, but what would you say is the hardest part of the course?
I'd say confidence and getting yourself involved. At the end of the day, the staff can't teach you how to be confident. They can't teach you how to interact with patients. Well, they can, but they can't teach you on a personal level how to interact with patients. That's something that you've got to learn and grow on your own knowledge. So I think the main thing is to not shy away, not to say, oh, I'll do mine next. Be the first one to volunteer, be the first one to get up and interact with a patient, because even though it may be scary at first, it will really impact you in your future years.
I'll say, for me, the hardest part of the course is getting yourself organised. It is a course that you have to be fully organised with. I've got children as well. I've juggled children and doing all the shift work. I've just found myself, if I'm organised the day before a shift, make sure I've got everything ready. It's just, I think that has been the hardest part, is just making sure I've got to be where I am on time and making sure all my ducks are in a line. And then you can get a good outcome, because everything else comes with learning and you've got the support by your mentors. So I think there's no one specific hard part so far as a year one student, but I'm sure there's harder bits to come.
Yeah, I also find that a lot of people out in the community ask me questions such as, I mean, I don't have any children, I'm not married, I don't have a mortgage in that respect, but I get lots of questions asking me how do people manage it, and what kind of financial support's available. Like I say, I don't have children, but there's lots of people on the course that do have children and they manage to do it. People have mortgages, people have bills, people have cars to pay for, and they're all still doing the course. So definitely, if you do have children or you are married and you don't know how the course is going to fit around you, you should definitely not let that hinder your decision to do the course, because the course is fantastic. And obviously, once you've started the course and you've got all of them them structures in place to help you financially and socially and things like that, then you really will thrive on the course, and it will be something that you wish you'd done a lot sooner.
Lovely. Okay. Can I ask Tracy, what do you think the hardest part of the course is?
I think there's an element of transition from becoming who you are into a professional being. It's not like being a normal student, for instance, reading English literature or something like that. You're actually developing yourself into a professional being, both academically and clinically, and that can be quite difficult for some people to get their heads around that. So it means about thinking about who you are in every aspect of your life, not just at university and on placement, but whilst you're outside of placement, because you are going to be a professional person, you're going to be representing a professional body. So you have to think about all those sorts of elements, like being punctual, maintaining confidentiality. And I think that's probably a difficult part of the course initially for some people to come to terms with.
Thank you. I can see lots of people nodding when you said that. Yeah, I agree that transition is something that doesn't catch people out, but it's definitely a challenge, isn't it? So this question, I'm not sure we have an exact answer for this one yet. Naomi, any idea of roughly how many we get each year?
So it will vary each year. My very rough calculation is there was approximately 14 applications for each place this year. I think it was higher than normal, but yeah, I'm waiting for the official figures.
Okay, I think we certainly say that it's competitive. I know that the idea behind open days is that you talk to current students and find out how they stood out, how they got selected, how they managed to kind of get those high scores during interviews. So thank you for that. That's great. Placements. I think we've talked about other placements such as hospitals in the community. So that's covered. Will I have a mentor? Absolutely. Will I have to move placement areas? Tracy's outlined that, so that's good, you will. Any changes to placements because of coronavirus? And I think people thinking about applying for this year have had to weigh up the potential changes to courses. I think we're not anticipating huge disruption for entry in 2021. So I think the question to that one about changes to placements because of coronavirus, there's likely to be some changes. We think that this is also a long game, not a short problem, coronavirus. So the kind of changes we might see will be things that we will slowly get used to. And there may be changes in the way that we interact with patients, the kind of PPE that students might have to wear. But we're not expecting huge changes with regard to how we run placements. But we've certainly seen a big change in the type of calls that ambulances are going to, the kind of problems that are featuring much more commonly now compared to before the coronavirus hit our shores. But we don't think there's any huge changes with regard to placements in 2021. Will I need a car? Well, I think that's covered. So it's really important, and Ellie outlined how important that was. And Tracy also outlined it's your responsibility to get to and from placement. So it might not be a car, you might have a motorbike, but you certainly need to get yourselves to and from where you're living to your placement for the start of your shift. Who can help with this one? Any student parking in Portsmouth? How have you coped with that, students?
I live in Portsmouth, so I'm quite lucky that the area I live doesn't require a parking permit. But if you do go for private accommodation, then just be wary that quite a lot of places around Portsmouth require you to have a parking permit. Regarding halls, none of the halls have any parking facilities for students, so just be wary of that when you come to look for accommodation.
also, just to add on from that, I don't live in Portsmouth. I live at home still. But a really good tip for anyone who is commuting to and from the university, the park and ride is a fantastic way to get in and out the city. Obviously, it's much cheaper than parking on the roadside when you are to come to university. And also you can get monthly and even yearly tickets for the park and ride, and it works out a lot cheaper than if you were to just pay for parking on the roadside.
I think I would add, so I going to halls, I found, before our course started, I found 3 other student paramedics who started together, and we decided to get a house together, and that's where I still am. We live on the very edge of the parking permit zone. We wouldn't be able to get 4 permits, but at the moment we've not had any major problems. Sometimes you have to drive a little bit to find parking, but whether I finish early, late, early hours of the morning or whatever, I've usually been able to find a space all right.
Okay, thank you for that. One question about finance: any financial support available to student paramedics outside of the Student Finance England arrangements that you'll need to have a look at and think about? Standard university course fees apply at the moment. There's a new government grant that was announced the latter part of last year, which is available to all new and existing students, and you'll need to apply for this separately. It's fairly straightforward. The window for that hasn't opened up yet for current students, but will be open for, obviously, for new students. And that's obviously very welcome. The other thing that we do year on year, and we make a decision about this each year, is whether we can support our students in terms of paying their mileage claims. So we're able to reimburse students for costs incurred getting to and from placement. We know that's a lifeline for some, and very welcome, and just takes the sting out of what is quite an expense getting to and from placements. So it's something that all health science students will have to deal with at some point, but we think that's a unique selling point for the University of Portsmouth, and we know that's valued by students, so it's there if they want to claim that back. Student support, so health and wellbeing support. Patrick's kind of outlined this. There's health and wellbeing support from the ambulance service when you are there with them in placement, and also within the university. And there's a whole host of different services that will where you can engage in courses on mindfulness. You can have formal counselling, informal counselling, one-to-one sessions. So lots and lots of health and wellbeing support for students to keep our students healthy and well, and kind of respond to their needs. Another question about paying for uniform. Thanks for the answer for that one. It's all provided to all of our students, including PPE. And then if you have to replace that at some point, if it wears out or gets damaged, you request a replacement for that at a local level, and that's sort of sorted out by the ambulance service. I've talked a little bit about graduate prospects and employment. It might be, Jessica, if it's useful, just to outline what you've been through in the last year or so to get offers of posts and that kind of thing, that process. How's that work for you?
So I don't know if any of the other universities do this, but we've been very, very lucky. We've had SCAS come in and talk to us about how they work with their newly qualified paramedics and what they offer us. We've also had lectures into how to apply for that, and we've also got videos on how to apply to the HCPC. With regards to applying for jobs, we've had all that information given to us, which has been quite nice, and I've been offered a job with SCAS, which is really nice. There's so many different places that you can use your degree, not just with regards to being a paramedic, and there's many ways that you can further your future career by doing a master's or taking it elsewhere.
Okay, thank you, Jess. So I think what we'll do is draw the open day presentation to a close. Does anybody have any final things to say to our virtual visitors? It's not compulsory, but you're welcome to if you like. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, everyone. Thanks to Jess, James, Ellie, Aisha, and David. Thanks to my colleagues, Naomi, Patrick, and Tracy, for contributing today. We hope this has been useful to you. I guess I will just wave and say goodbye. And I hope you've enjoyed your virtual open day presentation with Paramedic Science. I would say good luck with your applications. And please get in touch with us if you have any questions about applying to Portsmouth. So goodbye for me. Goodbye to everyone.
Bye, everyone. Good luck with your applications.
Bye from me.
Good luck.
Lovely. Patrick, if we could stop recording there, that would be great.